Okay, everyone, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right, welcome. We have a good crowd here. People are still joining, but it's 5 minutes past, so let's get started. Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for our audience across the globe. It's great to see you here. I am Summer Zhao, and I'm the co-president of Energy Innovation Network. It's my privilege here to do the opening remark on behalf of EIN, and I want to extend my heartfelt welcome to each of you that joins our 2021 Enspire Summit. The theme for our session today is to envision a carbon zero future. And this is the first of the 4 sessions that we'll present to you this month as part of the Enspire Summit as we run up to COP26. So if you're here today, you must care about climate change. Scientific fact shows that if the temperature rises more than 1.5 or 2 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial level, our negative impact on the Earth ecosystem will be irreversible. So it's very critical that we start taking collective actions soon. And that's why our overall theme of the conference is counting down to COP26. Let me minimize this. So what is COP26? I'll quickly explain what COP26 is and why it is important, how our Enspire Summit fits into this overall theme, and finally, a quick introduction of EIN. So COP26 is essentially the 26th Conference of Parties, or the 2021 United Nations Climate Change Conference. So every year, UN organizes the COP meetings that bring almost all countries on Earth to negotiate and agree to actions and plans addressing climate change. 197 countries. So this is like that United Nations conference that will make everyone address the climate change challenges. This year, the COP26 will be held in November, Glasgow, UK. All the previous COP meetings include the COP15 conference held in Copenhagen, or the COP21 conference held in Paris, where the famous Paris Agreement was born. And this year is especially important because the Paris Agreement, after five years after the Paris Agreement, people will need to commit to the plans and then check on the implementation. And in Paris Agreement, we'll need to try to keep the temperature rise within 1.5 degrees Celsius instead of 2. And I want to share a quick story of myself because I attended the COP16 meeting in Cancun in 2011. So about 2010, actually, about 11 years ago. And at that time, it was just 1 year after the Copenhagen conference where the US and China broke up with each other. So we were very anxious because people were not collaborating and people were not taking climate change as a problem seriously. You can see on my back, you have been negotiating all my life. You cannot tell me that you need more time. So that is the anxiety the student delegates felt at that time. So it's very good that after 11 years, it has changed a lot. People are taking climate change seriously, and people are taking climate change as a priority, especially from the country's perspective. Although there's still a lot that we need to do, but there has been progress made. And there are 4 goals for COP26. The first one is to secure global net zero by mid-century and keep 1.5 degrees within reach. Essentially, it's trying to achieve carbon neutrality and reduce the temperature rise to 1.5 degrees. The second is adaptation to protect communities and natural habitats. This is important because our environment is already changing. Even if we reduce the carbon emissions, our environment will keep changing. So it's very important for us to adapt to protect our communities, our animals, and the Earth. And the third one is to mobilize finance. So from the Paris Agreement, the developed countries agreed to raise $100 billion every year for climate finance. So we need to mobilize the private and public sectors to reach these goals. And the fourth one is collaboration. So countries, organizations, and everyone need to work together to deliver, to reach our goals, because climate change is a problem that faces all human race. So how our Enspire Summit is organized is that we'll have 4 sessions, and each of the sessions will be matched with the goals of the COP26. And in each of the sessions, we'll have in-depth discussions from experts and industrial leaders on the solutions for these 4 goals. And these 4 sessions will be held and spread out on the 4 weekends of October this month. And it'll be online for each one of us to view. Okay, so I'll quickly go over each of the sessions. The first one is mitigation. As you can see here, we have in session 1, it's about carbon emission reduction and temperature rise limitation. But this is very broad. So you'll have, we'll have like policy angles, corporations angles, and we decided to focus on the corporations level. How are companies trying to reduce their emissions and reduce their energy usage to achieve our carbon net zero? And you'll hear from Greenpeace. Let me actually just minimize this window. You'll hear from Greenpeace, Tencent, Enel, and HSBC. I very much look forward to our today's session because it will be very interesting to learn how the different companies are trying to achieve new carbon neutrality. Our session 2 will be held next weekend. And in there, we'll be working on adaptation. So you'll hear from Total Energies, the Carter's Labs, a professor from Nanjing University, and a disaster relief center in Africa. Our 3rd session will be held in October 23rd. And there you have a full discussion where you'll hear from angel investors, Phila Climate, BlackRock, TDK, Macquarie's Group, StoneChair, and the World Bank. Essentially, all the asset types in the climate finance will be joining that panel discussions. It will be a very great panel for you to attend. And the 4th session is about collaboration. So there you'll be hearing from, you'll hear about actually the success stories from each country and how the countries and organizations are trying to collaborate with one another. So you'll hear from China, Africa, US, India, and Europe on their success stories. I want to thank you to all our ecosystem partners, including Impact Bread, New Energy Nexus, Young Green Tech, Global Energy Transition Alliance, Beijing Energy Network, Zuitech, TDK Ventures, for all your support for spreading the word and making this summit happen. And finally, just to quick introduce EIN if you're not familiar with our organization. So our mission is to bridge smart minds and advance a more sustainable future. We were founded in 2015 in Silicon Valley, and we're a global nonprofit powered by volunteers from the US, Europe, Asia, and Africa. So through events and programs, we intend to build a global network. As you can see on the map, we have presence over more than 100 regions across all 5 continents, and we have more than 3,500 active members around the globe. So we do hope to facilitate energy education, innovation, and to help it reach a clean and sustainable future. There are 3 different types of the events that we organize. The Enspire Summit that's held annually. We have the education program. The latest one is about renewable energy finance, where all our students got a renewable energy finance certificate for the skills and knowledge they learned. And we organize multiple events, study groups, and webinars on a monthly basis for people to learn and network. I want to highlight that all our core team members for EIN do have their full-time job, as you can see on the screen, and we all take spare time on a volunteering basis to run EIN. I want to thank you all for your hard work and making this summit happen. As you can see, our team is diverse with people from the US, China, Africa, India, and Europe. Okay, so feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. Subscribe to our future events, especially the 3 sessions after today's session for the entire summit. Welcome again, and thank you so much for being with us. I hope you have a blast today. With that, I will hand it over to Zetian, our event coordinator for this session. Zetian, are you on?
Yes, great. Thanks, Summer, for the opening remark. I'm Tim Zhang, and I'm the community manager at EIN and also the host for session 1, panel discussion. And I'm very excited to kick off this very interesting session. And when I say interesting, it's not only because of the topic, but also because we have international panelists from both US and China. And we also have a very diverse audience from more than 30 countries. Summer, you can go to the next slide. And before we introduce our fantastic speakers, we got a few things for housekeeping. And today we are using Zoom webinar function, and we do have the opening Q&A option at the bottom of your screen. And please feel free to send out any question you may have throughout the session. And also this session is being recorded and live streaming on YouTube. Okay, so that's all I got. Let's dive into our panel presentation session. And I'm excited to introduce our 4 speakers. So the first speaker, we have Ruiqi. Ruiqi is joining us from Beijing. Ruiqi is the Climate and Energy Project Manager at Greenpeace East Asia. Welcome, Ruiqi. And we also have Jiaqi joining us from Shenzhen. Jiaqi is the head of IDC Energy Technology and Initiatives. Jiaqi, welcome. And we also have Alvaro joining us from Boston. Alvaro is the head of Global Technical Sales and Customer Insights at Enel. Welcome, Alvaro. Last but not least, we have Tina. Tina joining us from HSBC. Tina is the Asia Pacific Senior Manager for Sustainability at HSBC. And Tina is based in Hong Kong. Welcome, Tina. Okay, so let's get started. The first presentation is from Ruiqi. Ruiqi, over to you. And I can share screen for you.
Sure. Hi, everyone. This is Ruiqi. As Zetian is sharing the screen for us, I'd like to take a couple seconds to introduce a little bit. I'm currently based in Beijing. I'm really honored to be here to open the discussions with you all. So Greenpeace prides itself with both global and localized work. And in the following minutes, I would like to share some of our on-the-ground observations of corporate actions here in China. It may not be comprehensive, but I hope that it can trigger some thoughts and discussions. Okay. Okay. Can everyone see the PowerPoint?
Yes, we can see it, Rich.
Cool. So I would like to share a little bit about the progress gaps of the corporate actions here in China, and then finally we'll touch on a little bit of our work. As you all might have known that since President Xi announced China's carbon neutrality pledges last September, which is to peak our carbon emissions by 2030 and reach carbon neutrality by 2060. Since that moment, I would say we have entered a new era of corporate actions, climate actions in China. We are seeing that 3 types of corporates who are reacting the fastest to the country's carbon neutrality pledges. This list may not be comprehensive, as the first type we saw is the state-owned enterprises.
Richie, sorry to interrupt. Can you please go full screen?
Trying to can make it bigger. Would this help? Okay. And we can see one of the major steel company, Bao Steel, has committed to reach carbon neutrality by 2050. And besides that, we are seeing that other steel enterprises such as the energy giants like Datang or Huaneng all have committed to raise their renewable energy capacity installations and peak carbon emissions as early as possible. In addition to that, we also see in the financial institutions such as the People Bank of China announced that it will uphold the country's carbon neutrality pledges with green finance policies and providing incentives for corporates' low carbon transitions. And finally, we also saw that the tech sector, the ICT or the platform sector has acted very fast as well. Tencent was one among the first to kick off its carbon neutrality planning, who's also here today. And we're seeing that the Baidu as well, our major search engine, and the fintech company Ant Group all announced their carbon neutrality goals by 2030. And Chain Data, one of the cloud and IDC operator, has made further steps to commit to 100% renewable energy by 2030. So this is the larger backdrop of corporate actions in China, where companies are reacting, resonating with the country's carbon neutrality pledges. So my specific focus is on the tech sector here in China. We've been tracking the sector's commitment of carbon neutrality and 100% renewable energy for a couple years now. And this year, we have looked at the 22 major companies in these sectors, and we definitely see positive changes and progress. The first part is about the transparency on carbon information disclosure. As we can see, even just 1 year of a difference from 2020 to 2021, more companies are disclosing their carbon emissions data. I know this 50% of disclosure rate might not sound very high in a global context. However, in China, this is new because data was always being challenged in China, right? So we definitely see this as a progress as companies reacting more to the disclosure requirements of the exchange centers and also to the government. So we see this as a positive change. The second part is just between 2022 to 2021, we see more companies are procuring renewable energy. We have seen new commitments, specifically from AdHub, one of the data center company in China, also commits to 100% renewable energy by 2030. It's extremely rare for Chinese company to do such commitments. There are only around 5 companies who joined Renewable RE100 in the global initiatives. So with new companies committing, this is definitely starting a new trend. In addition to the commitments, we're also seeing that more companies are procuring renewable energy. We saw that 13 of the 22 giants are procuring this year compared to last year. So there are gaps also, despite of the progress that we see, and as some are very well elaborated, the challenges faced by COP26 and upon us, we all need to focus on the speed, the scale, and the quality of the corporate actions in order to address the scale of challenges faced by climate change, right? So if we looked at the 100% renewable energy transition and journey across the globe, we see that most of the global tech companies have made such commitments by 2030. 41 companies in total, as we counted earlier this year, and 20% of them have achieved by 2020, such as Google and Apple, and 50% of these companies have made commitment will do so by 2030. And about 44% in 2019 has used over 60% of renewable energy already. So we see that the global tech sector has upgraded their commitments and actions last year in face of the climate urgency. Google specifically talked about 24/7 carbon zero operations to bring the yearly matching renewable energy to hourly matching to the new level. And Apple talked about to bring its supply chain to 100% renewable energy and circular as well. So we see, and Microsoft talked about negative emissions by 2050. And as global peers are making more progress, we see that Chinese giants also made progress, but there is a gap in the speed. Right now, there's only 2 or 3 companies in the tech sector in China has made carbon neutrality goals and 100% renewable energy goals. So the rest of them, including some big names, have yet to announce their commitments. So we have to move faster. And in terms of the scale, and from our research, the scale of the renewable energy procurement is still very limited. There are only 2 companies have used more than 3% of renewable energy compared to their total electricity consumption this year when we counted. So the rest of us, the companies, will still need to scale up their renewable energy procurement. So we can see that with recent progress from China's green power electricity trading pilot, more have made larger procurement and PPAs. So I'm definitely more positive for next year. When we count, we'll have more companies procuring larger scale. So our recommendations for tech sector in China is definitely first achieve 100% renewable energy use and carbon neutrality by 2030 across the value chain. In order to align with 1.5 degree, that is net zero by 2050. However, we do believe that more subsectors need to move faster and lead the transition. So with the current global tech sector speed, most of us will achieve 100% renewable energy by 2030. Secondly is definitely, like I mentioned, scale up renewable energy procurement. The third point is more about offset. We saw that as companies quickly reacting to the government's carbon neutrality pledges, corporations are exploring a wider range of solutions, all kinds. However, we do believe that ecosystem restorations and protections we encourage that, but carbon offset should not be a substitute for the reduction of fossil fuel emissions. So we hope that companies will prioritize 100% renewable energy in their carbon neutrality planning. And finally, disclosure is important. It allows stakeholders and the investors to understand the company's actions a bit more. So we hope that the companies can actively disclose their greenhouse gas emission data, and hopefully we can see 100% disclosure soon. And as more companies are joining the net zero journey, we see that some companies have raised the bar to include their supply chain carbon emission reduction, or even net zero in supply chain, 100% renewable energy in supply chain. And in the future, to truly address the climate challenges, we cannot stop in the energy perspective. We'll also have to look at resources as well. So I will just leave it here for the sharing of opening and sharing of the corporate actions in China. Later, I will talk a little bit about some of our work, just very briefly. So Greenpeace is a global organization. We have 55 offices across the globe. I'm from the East Asia divisions, where we have offices in Hong Kong, Taiwan, Seoul, and Tokyo, along with Beijing. And we have a legacy of corporate engagement work across the globe. Some of you might have heard of us in other countries. In China, specifically, these are the key sectors of our work that we focus a lot of our resources on. They're shifting the old sectors towards a low carbon transition and accelerating the new trends. So cloud and IDC sectors are one of the key sectors, and also my work focus. We also have projects looking at the platform economy, the e-commerce sector specifically, and automobiles. All of these are the major drivers or in our future low carbon and digital economy. And above these, we also looked at the finance institutions, how they can be part of the climate solutions. And without saying, and the renewable energy sector is also quite important. So these are some of the goals. To sum up, we are aiming to bring the key sectors to carbon neutrality by 2030, and also to bring 100% EV by 2030 for key automobile companies as well. And for asset management and finance institutions, we're looking forward to raise the disclosure of portfolio carbon emissions, and also looking at the institution's own carbon neutrality planning and targets, including their portfolio. So I think time is running out. I have some more, some of the impacts that we've made in the past, but I'll just quickly skip them. So I'd like to share a little bit about our future work directions. As more companies joining the corporate action train, we are looking looking to better ways to track and evaluate the company's actions. So we're in the process of making a tracker, a website, which will be launching soon. The next part is we will be looking at forest offsets specifically in China, and how it's being used by companies to reach their carbon neutrality goals. And third is the 100% closed loop and circular. This is a long-term directions. And finally is climate investment and looking at financial institutions, portfolios, carbon emissions, and reduction strategies. So what we do today will define our tomorrow. There's no simple solutions to climate change, and collaboration is a key. And it's Greenpeace here. We're not just observers. We are also would like to enable and help work with companies to towards a real net zero So with all this being said, I'm really happy to be here, and I'll turn over to Zetian.
Great, thanks, Ruiqi. Thanks for sharing the interesting perspective from Greenpeace. And the next speaker is Jiaqi. Jiaqi is from Tencent, and he will be talking about IDC technology and initiatives. Jiaqi, over to you, and I can share screen for you. Just 1 second.
Thanks, Zetian. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Haven't spoke English for a year, so maybe a little bit rough. I apologize first.
No problem. Yeah, here we go.
All right, let's get started. So I only have a few slides to share with the friends online, and I do want to introduce Tencent a little bit to folks online if you are not very familiar with the company. But basically, Tencent is probably the top internet company in China, and we have a very popular apps like WeChat, and we have a lot of very popular games. Probably the largest, one of the largest social media company. Sorry, I got mute. Can you hear me now? I think I got mute by someone.
Yeah, Jiaqi, we can hear you. Yes.
Okay, cool. And Tencent is also a very large cloud provider in China, along with Alibaba Cloud and Huawei Cloud. So we're really like a multi-billion dollar company. So Tencent has been doing a lot of work in like sustainability and also the corporate social value from like 10 years ago. But since last year, our President Xi announced the 2060 carbon neutrality program for China. This year, January 12th, Tencent announced commitment to carbon neutrality. And we believe we're the first a big tech firm who announced this commitment in China. And the Tencent chairman and CEO Pony Ma stated that the firm will enhance the exploration of technologies to save energy and reduce emissions. Oh, could you go back to the previous slide? So, yep, thank you. So, and the step 2, in April 19th this year, we founded the SSV group. We call it Sustainable Social Value Organization, and we invest 50 billion yuan for that initiatives. So basically, we plan to have that group to focus on like our carbon initiatives and the education programs and social values, and so on and so forth. And for the step 3, in August 19th this year, we invest another 50 billion yuan to help promote the Common Prosperity Program after Chinese government announcement for their Common Prosperity like plan. So basically, these 3 main steps shows our determination to really, help China and help the society to do good, which is also our core corporate value. Okay, next one. Next slide, please, Zetian.
Maybe
yeah,
it's
and
a little
I
delay.
put four.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I put four pictures here, and the first one is the Greenpeace ranking for this year. And thanks Ruiqi, and Ruiqi is my old friend. So we took the first place among all the cloud providers. And I do hope that with all the efforts, and hopefully for the next ranking, you can get a good position. And the picture on the right is our new global headquarters. It's in Shenzhen. We call it. It's near Qianhai Bay, and we plan to invest 5.7 billion yuan investment and really make it like very eco-friendly, close to net zero, like community to be our to be our new headquarters. I think we just started the program, and we will probably finish building this headquarters before 2025. And David, so he wrote a book. I think he's our chief exploration officer in the company, and he wrote a book called AI for Fuel. Basically, Tencent wants to use AI to enable different sectors like food, energy, and water. And that's also our big initiative there. And the last picture is our participation for the first green power pilot trading program in China this year. And I'm the guy on the left signing the first contract for Tencent. Next slide, please, Zetian. So we have been focusing on renewable energy and low carbon design operation for data centers for a while, and I just want to show a couple initiatives that we have done previously. First one, we purchased renewable energy for Chongqing data center, and we used hydropower for our data center, and made the first 100% renewable energy data center for a hyperscale data center. And the second one on the right, we have self-generated on-site solar. That's for Qingyuan data center, and we built a 13 megawatt solar roof panel for powering the data center. So basically, that's one of the largest on-site renewable energy project for data centers in China. And we also we are investigating the source network load storage technology. So basically, it's a huge microgrid system for data center. We want to use wind power, solar farms to power the data center, and we also want to build our like distribution line and also the transformers and all those, and to make a big microgrid, and that will be helpful for us to use the renewable energy more cost effectively. And we also win some award like LEED Platinum rating and some other like award. And I don't want to dive too deep into that. And also focus on energy efficiency. All right, next slide, please. So this is our basically the full picture of our carbon neutrality program for Tencent. And this is my last slide. So basically, there are 4 different angles for the initiatives. First one is data center on the top, and want to procure and use more renewable energy, and also lower the PUE, which is power utilization effectiveness. So basically, that's a metric for the efficiency for data centers, and also improve the efficiency. That's basically the main part of the program, because as an internet company, data center use a lot of electricity, and it represents probably about 90% of the total carbon emission and the electricity consumption in Tencent. So basically, we need to decarbonize our data centers to decarbonize Tencent. The angle on the left is corporate operation. So want to use more intelligent building technology, and also like build the our new headquarters using all the low carbon technologies. So the angle on the right is for education and social value. So we want to focus on that, and also to boost the industry. So because we are a cloud company, so we work with different industries like automobile, manufacturing, and also energy and building. So we want to use our technologies to digitalize different industries and to make sure the other industries get more efficient, and so that they can reach their carbon neutrality easily. But I do want to say that we still have a long journey to go compared to big companies like Amazon, Google, Microsoft. We are a little bit far behind, so we need to really work pretty hard for the next few years, maybe 20 years, to really achieve our neutrality program. Thank you, but this is my presentation, and we can discuss more later.
Great, thanks, Jiaqi. Thanks for sharing the interesting initiatives at Tencent. And I believe we will have more interesting discussion later in the panel discussion session. And our next speaker is Alvaro. Alvaro is the head of global technical sales and customer insights at Enel X. Alvaro, over to you.
Great, thank you. Can you hear me? I hope you can.
Yes.
Great, thanks everyone. I'm glad to be here. I'm based in the Boston office, so you know, it's my evening, but I'm very glad to be here talking about these issues. They're very important issues for obviously all the companies on the panel, but also for all of us as human beings on the planet. So I'm going to talk about developing and executing an integrated energy strategy, and it's really, and I'll get into what I mean by that, but it's really around sustainability goals. Next slide, please. So just briefly in terms of who we are, who Enel is one of the largest utilities in the world. The way we're organized is basically into 5 entities, 5 sister companies. There's a network operator, so regulated utility. We also develop renewable energy, Enel Green Power, green generation. You can see there 49 gigawatts of capacity. We also have retail supply. So we do have a number of our customers in deregulated and regulated supply. And finally, Enel X is the 4th one, which is the company I work for. We're a leader in demand response, but also in solutions that are targeted toward C&I customers, specifically around software solutions and on-site solutions. And the 5th one that's not there is really a trading division that really supports all of the companies. So just to give you a sense of how large Enel is, and we are also very concerned about climate change, and we are an A-listed CDP customer. We have pledged on a net zero path by 2050. So we do take this very, very seriously, and Enel X as well, helping customers to achieve their net zero ambitions, as I'll talk about in the next few slides. Next slide, please. So just talking about Enel X now, we have 3 divisions, a B2G, a B2B, and a B2C. So I'm really going to focus on the business-to-business part of our company, and you can see there are solutions. That's really how we deliver to customers. First, what we call customer insights, which is the part of the B2B business that I work in. Really, customer insights is about understanding customers' needs. So understanding what they need in terms of sustainability, risk management, cost management, really understanding how we can tailor solutions to help them meet their goals. And some of those solutions include distributed energy, on-site PV, battery energy storage, demand response I already mentioned. So flexibility is very important. as we increase the amount of renewable energy on the grid, it's very important that we provide flexibility to the grid. But also we support customers with e-mobility and fleet electrification. So we're really trying to really push the electrification of the grid, the decarbonization of the grid, so we can all achieve a net zero future. Next slide, please. So in terms of our offices, we are a global company, and I think it's very important that we are global because the net zero challenge is global. Supply chains crisscross countries. Many of the largest customers that we work with have facilities in many continents and many countries. And the only way really to understand how to control emissions is to understand local conditions, local options. So we enable companies really by working with them locally in order to really explore what can be done in the specific markets. You know, we already heard some examples about some of the efforts in China, for example, with the opening of the renewable energy pilot. But there are many other happenings. For example, the opening of the markets in Vietnam for virtual power purchase agreements. So continuing expansion of the markets throughout the world for renewable energy is very important. Next slide. So I just want to touch on this framework, and I think it's worthwhile. If you are not familiar with this framework, you might want to go to the WBCSD, the World Business Council on Sustainable Development. Enel is a member of that, and we worked with WBCSD on this framework. And really it has 6 components, starting with setting visions and targets. So not only a 2050 vision and target, but obviously interim visions and targets. But I'm going to talk about some of the other ones, mainly around the governance issue, data collection and management, and the solutions issue. But it is worthwhile. I think it's a very interesting framework. I'm going to get into a little more detail on how we make this work for customers, but really it sets out, you know, trying to look at a customer's, all the energy uses of all its operations, and most importantly, across its value chain. You're going to hear this a lot about supply chains, value chains, scope 3, very important as companies begin to look at their emissions portfolio, to not just look at their direct emissions or the emissions or even the indirect emissions that they control, but also the indirect emissions that are outside of their control. So I think that's a very important consideration. And the drivers there, it's really, you know, to respond to an evolving energy system, collaboration. You know, we heard about this. Collaboration is very important, not only across countries, but across companies. If we're going to solve this challenge, and also to actively lead on market and stakeholder pressure. So very important to have an integrated framework. Next slide. So I'm going to focus on these 3 given the time limitations, but really the first one's about aligning your stakeholders. It's very important, for example, if you're reporting to CDP, that it's clear that you do have a strong governance organization, that stakeholders are aligned, that they are involved, that they understand the challenges, because this really needs a buy-in and cooperation from a lot of people in the organization. So, and why do companies do this? Well, investors want to see that managers and management is involved in these issues. And also supply chain partners, you know, customers and suppliers want to see that you have a commitment to GHG reduction. So once we have governance, obviously we have to collect data. And I think, you know, once again, we cannot, you know, measure and track what we don't know, we don't understand. So we have to really collect all the data possible. And I thought that slide was interesting from Greenpeace, that showed the increase in the amount of customers that are actually reporting carbon data, electricity data. Very important to be able to gather and convert this data. Once again, investors want to understand that companies are looking at risks and impacts, and supply chain partners want to make sure that environmental data is being considered in the relationship. And finally, I want to talk about solutions, because it's, we have the governance, we have the data, but we always have to show progress towards goals. So that means identifying solutions and really making sure that those are executed upon. So yeah, let me go into a little more detail on each of these. Next slide, please. So the first one's really aligning your stakeholders. And what do I mean by that? Really, it's the first thing is just identifying your team. So who are the major stakeholders in your company? Meaning, is your legal department involved? Are your finance people on board? Sustainability team obviously needs to be on board. Your procurement facility managers also involved. The more people you can get discussing these issues, not necessarily agreeing on everything, but at least understanding where everybody's priorities and goals are, you may have a chance to build consensus. And I think it's very important to have a discussion. I'm going to talk about a workshop approach a little later, but I think this is sort of a basic step that a lot of companies really don't do. Emissions management has been really the focus of, for example, sustainability staff, but really the goal is to expand the conversation because climate change affects the company as a whole, right? So it's very important to get buy-in from a number of people. And I show there a few goals. They will differ based on different people. Certain people are worried about GHG reductions, others are cost savings, others are worried about risk management. So it's very important to have this discussion, align your stakeholders so we can all be on the same page when we review strategies. Next slide. Also very important is gathering and converting data. So scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 data, that's the GHG protocol framework. Very important to understand how you stand in terms of the emissions from each of these scopes. Obviously, underlying those emissions are activity data. So your electricity bills, your natural gas bills, your diesel fuel bills, your sales, your purchased goods and services from suppliers in terms of scope 3, transportation usage, that's not included in scope 1. So really having a system, an enterprise-wide tracking system is very important. And doing that on as global basis as possible is critical. I mentioned the GHG protocol. It is important to follow a framework, whether that's GHGP or whether that's the ISO standards. There is guidance out there on how to track and how to measure these things. It's very, very important. And also how to track some of the strategies and products that are used to offset or reduce emissions in terms of scope 2 as well. So once again, this is a very important step. Next slide, please. And then finally, it's just showing progress. I just show here an illustrative chart on how we normally help customers map out their scope 1 and scope 2 and some of the strategies that are used to reduce those emissions. But once again, important to measure and understand which actions are being used to meet those goals. And these goals can be incremental. We obviously have the net zero goal in 2040 or 2050, but before that, we can have 100% renewable goals. We can have something as simple as developing a sustainability report. What's important is to show progress and progress toward that 2050 timeline. Next slide. So I think this is the final slide. So I just want to quickly go through this workshop that we do with customers. We work with customers on a variety of industries, pharmaceutical, banking, manufacturing, high tech. This is really applicable to any vertical, any sector. Really, the first phase is doing a lot of pre-work. As I mentioned before, it's collecting data, it's engaging stakeholders. We use surveys to assess goals. So we actually ask a number of questions. What are your priorities in terms of, for example, additionality? Is that an important priority? Are there any constraints? For example, can you use a long-term contract, 10 years, 15 years? Is there a specific return that you need? These are all important constraints. And also gathering data about the portfolio, understanding where their loads are, what is the forecast for the loads. So we can then go into the second phase, which is the workshop, which is really aligning these different goals, assessing options, and really developing a short list of things to pursue. So this, once again, I mentioned early, we have a global operation. It's really to look at this on a really local, regional basis because each country has different options. And then finally, we want to develop an implementation roadmap. So once we have a short list of strategies and approaches, then we can actually implement. And what we obviously try to do is we start with the things that can have the most impact the quickest, but that may not always be possible. So I'll end there. Happy to, we'll answer questions, get into a lot more detail on this, and thanks a lot.
Great, thanks, Alvaro. It's a very comprehensive and deep discussion, and it's very interesting to see the framework you shared about the sustainability initiative development. And we believe we will have more discussions later on in the panel discussion session. And our next speaker is Tina. Tina is the head of Asia Pacific Sustainability for HSBC. Tina, over to you.
Yes, hello everyone. Good morning. I think that it's very challenging to be the last speaker, frankly speaking. And I know that you have here about more than around 1 hour. So, but all the guest speaker, what they are saying, the net zero carbon target, you need to have money, right? That's the reason why you have HSBC here. But you don't need to consider is the HSBC the bank. You can consider Citi or other big banks is the similar, the approach is similar. So will you please help me to move the last slide? Before go to the details, I know to introduce myself a little bit because my background are totally different from most of the speaker today. My background is not about energy at all. My background is, the first 10 years of my career is focused on accountants, finance, and then 3 years ago I changed to sustainability. So my major now is like ESG disclosure, green finance, which is also a very popular topic, and also sustainability, CSR, all this topic for HSBC. So to know more detail, you can scan the QR code in LinkedIn, or you search my name, Tina Lee, CPA, then you can find that my LinkedIn portfolio. I actually keep posting ESG related or sustainable finance related information in the LinkedIn every day. So please move to the next slide. My sharing today is mainly about how financial institutions can help to in the whole net zero agenda, no matter for banking industry or for the whole economic. So before I going off, I just want to know that in the bottom of it, there are 4 different names: CDP, TCFD, PECA, and PCAF. I want to know that before this section, how many these 4 red category you have already heard about it? Please click in the chat room. If you only hear CDP, you keep 1, or if you only hear the TCFD before, you just keep 1. But if you hear all of these 4 in the bottom of it, could you please keep 4? Because I want to know the basic information that how much you know about the financial institution. Oh, Ellen knows 4 of it. I think you can skip my section. Frankly speaking, if you hear 4 of it, okay, 1. So I guess it may be the CDP. I think the most popular 2. I think the most popular 2 should be CDP or TCFD. Okay, so because the final 2 begin with P are mainly focused in financial institution. So normal people, I mean, in our industry or renewable, I think CDP and TCFD might be the most popular one. So I understand the average is the first 2. So I will, that's our standing point from my presentation. I try to elaborate more detail about how it in financial institution. So back to 4 years ago, I mean, in 2017, HSBC has already committed $100 billion of sustainable finance by 2025. And we have done since the launch of rewarding products. And in last year, we think that we need to be more faster and more effort. That's why the reason you see this PowerPoint, we have 3 pillars commitment for it. I think the most easy one is the first one. Because most of the audience today, I think it should be from energy industry. So the first pillar in the very left is a little bit easier for you to understand. First of all, you might already aware that a bank don't have much emission in scope 1 or scope 2. You can understand that we are a bank. Our data center is not as large as Google, as Tencent. So our scope 1 and scope 2 emission actually is not that large. However, by our research of CDP, we know that the bank's portfolio emission, it means that our lending, our loan, that emissions is like 700 times larger than our direct emission. So I think for a bank, the most challenging thing is that how to influence our customers. But let's go back to the very first beginning that we want to first become a net zero bank. it means that we will do, you have already covered. For example, we will do PPA, we will invest in renewable energy, we will do energy efficiency, especially for our building and our data center. So all that thing, we will do that. And also we will use the Paris Agreement Capital Transition Assessment Tool, PACCAT, to develop the transition path. This is the second box there, you can see that. And also we will do TCFD disclosure to that. We are one of the founding members of TCFD. If you didn't hear it, I think the first of all is apply to the banks, I mean financial institution, and the second large industry, maybe energy sector, they will also apply it, and also high tech, for example, Tencent, Google, some of them adopt the TCFD disclosure. So we are one part of it. And then in last year, we also developed a global, we cooperate with other stakeholders to develop a global standard called PCAF. It's another disclosure, but I think it's mainly target for financed emissions. So if you are not a financial institution, you seldom hear the PCAF one, and it's new because the standard was just announced last year. So this is our first pillar, our own operation, and know how much emission in our portfolio. And then we move to the second pillar, supporting our customers. You know that the more important thing is that how to support our customer to do the transition. Frankly speaking, it's not only a challenge for our customer, it's also a challenge for us. So you see that if there is a challenge, there is also opportunity. It means that it really means business opportunity for us. So that's why the reason I said you don't need to consider me as SSBC, because all other banks, all other big banks like Citi, EMP, they all have this pillar. It's just in different marketing terms or different slogan, but the core is the same. Is that how we help our customer to support their journey to a low carbon transition. And first, we have a dedicated ESG team. We give solution to our customer. We tell them that we tailor-make the solution for them to tell them how can you achieve lower carbon or net zero carbon target. And the second, we will provide financing and investment to support our customer. Our latest commitment is that in the coming 10 years, our sustainable finance or sustainable investment amount will over US dollar 715 billion or to 1 trillion to finance it. Just like I said at the opening, is that all the initiate, no matter Google, Apple, or whatever company that make their net carbon zero emission, they need money to support their transition. And this is the key of the financial institutions. The role is that direct the financial flow from brown industry to green industry, from higher carbon to lower carbon. So you can see that. So I also cover the 3 balls in the second pillar, and I think that we also apply a climate lens to financing decision. Is because that you know that all the banks have their coal policy, and we have stopped we have stopped financing the new coal plant from 2 years ago. Now all our coal customer is existing. We didn't enlarge the plan, and I think that before I think in the coming 3 weeks, all the financial institutions, the big banks in the world, will announce more aggressive, ambitious coal-related policy or energy-related policy in the coming 3 weeks, because the COP26 is coming, and we can see every day a company, especially financial institution, make a new announcement how to do this second pillar, help our customer and redirect the finance. So this is the second pillar. And the third one, I think that is for you maybe also easy to understand, because we suggest that we need to mainstream the nature capital solution. I think it's the same ambitious as Greenpeace, WWF, all these big charity, nature-based charity. We want to see nature capital as a key asset, and we want to invest in the activity to enhance the nature over the long term. So for this purpose, we create the HSBC pollination climate asset management back to 2 or 3 years ago, and we also set up a dedicated unit to tailor tailor the proposition to support clean tech innovation companies. For example, there's lots of renewable energy company that's seeking for funding, VC funding, so we're going to support it. It's just like what Bill Gates is doing, right? So we support clean tech. And in this year, we launched a totally philanthropy program to donate $100 million to scale the climate innovation. I was in one of the projects, for example, because my background is from mainland, so we go to one of the biggest mainland wetland in Zhanjiang. If you are Chinese, you know that in the south part of China, except for the Hainan Islands, Zhanjiang contains the largest wetland resource in mainland China. So we call with the government, we call with Alasan, and we have a project to see how the wetland can be one of the solution of blue carbon. So this is one example of that, how we use the 100 million donation money. And also we join with OECD and World Bank. I know that in the coming 2 or 3 days, there is a speaker from World Bank. So we join together to leading the fast infant to drive the investment in sustainable infrastructure, because you know that sustainable infrastructure is a kind of lock of carbon. It will last for maybe 100 years. So it's like a coal pan, right? So infrastructure means a lot to carbon agenda. So we also have that sustainable infrastructure alliance with OECD and World Bank to see how we promote this. So back to the bottom of it. Cdp rating, you all know what this means, so I don't want to spend time to do that. And last year we achieved A-. We are a little bit better than our European industry peer, and also I think that the average of the Cdp submission is like C or B around score. So I'm glad that we achieved A-, because if you already fill in the Cdp template, you know that there's so many information they require you to answer. So yeah, that's our latest rating. And we are, as I said, we are one of the founding members of TCFD. So from the very beginning, we have already joined TCFD. And annually, we disclose our TCFD data. So last year, already the 3rd year, we disclose it. You can search that in the internet that we already do that. It's actually very interesting. You can see our oil balance, you can see the high carbon sector balance and our exposure in this. And it's still developed, same as the second in the PECA and PCAF. I think that have to say that, first of all, these two standard begin with P is first of all target for financial institution, especially for the latest one, PCAF. Is I think that the full name of it is Partnership for Carbon Accounting Financials. So you can see that they have a financials name in their full name. It means that it's help to bank to measure their disclosure and its finance emission to achieve the net zero ambitious. You can also apply a user wide for that because it's open source. They have an Excel database that each location, each sector, how much is the carbon intensive data there. Then if they have a database, and then you can base the database, the carbon data in the system, and combine with your own exposure, your own portfolio, you can calculate your carbon intensive. So that's a very high level summary about it. But actually in reality, in the database, for example, most of the developing country and most of the industry has not been covered in the data. So it's still evolving. We are one of the pilot banks to tax it. In the coming 2 or 3 years, you will see a milestone in it. And then please go to the next page. It's about the financial product which we can offer to our clients. You can leave your, because there's you can see the first the color one are the financial tool we can provide. For example, the most obvious one is green bond. US is the biggest green bond market, and China is the second worldwide. I mean, both together we have over 2/3 of about the total green bond market for only these 2 countries. So it means that I think that is very, I don't need to explain to you, but for others, for example, sustainable linked loan, sustainable supply chain finance, I cannot cover details, but you can raise in the Q&A. If this page, anything special you want to know, you can raise it. Frankly speaking, for individual, I know you can buy green deposit, that's a list. And also you can buy some ESG ETF or ESG fund. If you want to know more about it, I can explain more, but the green one there, the black one in the background is the one that as an individual you can actually find in the financial market, especially in US. I think China is still you cannot see much ESG solution, but US is the most development. So there have already been launch of different product there. I can share more in the Q&A session. All in all, I think that I'm very pessimistic about this topic because in the coming 2 or 3 years, I think there will be a very significant milestone, especially for financial institution. The reason is that after the COP26, we will see that all the government or regulator, they will give more green light to financial institution to promote sustainable finance. As I said, that it's not only means challenge for us, it also means opportunity. And under this very fierce competition, if a bank can catch this opportunity, we will enable more profit, more productized, and more solution we can provide to the client. So we can exchange more in our Q&A session. That's all for my sharing today. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Tina. It's very interesting to hear the perspective from the financial institutions. And I believe we wrapped up our panel presentation session, and now we are going into our panel discussion session. And this session will be moderated by Ruiqi. Ruiqi, over to you. Ruiqi, are you there?
Hi, sorry, I was muted. So thank you all for the amazing presentations and thoughts from the presenters. So I know we have many questions, so I have to prioritize and pick. First, I want to focus on the renewable energy and battery storage. As we all know, transition towards net zeros, the most important key strategy is switching towards renewable energies. And I think that both Jiaqi and Alvaro has mentioned a lot about this. Maybe I can start with Jiaqi. Could you share some thoughts on Tencent's recent participation on the new green power trading pilot program in China? And what are the new opportunities and the challenges that you see from this pilot? And what's Tencent's expectations in the future?
All right, yeah, thanks, Ruiqi. So yeah, for the first pilot program in China, like 2 months ago, it's a relatively small pilot program. So there are not many transactions through that program. So basically, you can see that as like a first, like build the foundation of the really for the market. For people to participate and buy green power, but really the mechanism is not very mature. So just give everyone a little bit background. So in China, so the energy market is a little bit different from US. So in US we have a regulated market, deregulated market. And the big tech firms like Google and Amazon and Microsoft, they buy renewable power from PPA contracts or VPPA contracts, power purchase agreement or virtual power purchase agreement. So basically, it allows like tech firms to go to a developer and negotiate a deal like let's say 50 megawatt wind farm, and basically they will buy the electricity from that wind farm along with the REC, the green renewable energy certification. So in China, there is no so basically the PPA and VPPA, they don't work. So there is no mechanism for that. And before 2019, so all the wind farms and solar farms, basically, if you build that, you can get subsidy from the government. And basically the rack price, the cost for the green certification is associated with the cost for the subsidy. And the subsidy is very high, so that the cost for the green certification is pretty high. That's why no one will buy that. But after 2019 and 2020, so we have some wind farms and solar projects that don't need the subsidy. So basically, the green power generated by those projects, basically you can take those green certifications and bring that to the market and sell. We call it 平价绿证 in China. And for the last trading program, so basically they develop a new format. Basically, they will combine that green certification with actual electricity. So basically, it's bundled. So they bundle the electricity with the green certification, and that is, I think, the biggest achievement for that trading pilot program. Basically, they bundle the electricity and the green certifications. But like I said, it's still not very mature, and not a lot of demand, and the supply is not enough because we just eliminated the subsidy from 2020. So there are not a lot of wind farms, solar farms that can generate green power without subsidy that you can buy from the market. So basically, I think that's a good initiative, and we'll have more supply, more demand, and more players in the market. But we just get started.
Excellent. Definitely, as I can hear that this is a milestone in China, not only for the power markets, but also for companies who are wanting to procure renewable energies. However, it's still not very mature in terms of the price mechanisms and also as the trading freedom. So Alvaro, I know you are an expert on renewable energy as well in the US, and you've mentioned a little bit about the bundling the battery and increasing flexibility of the load from customers. Would you want to share an example, as we all know that battery is a very hot topic as well in here in China?
Yeah, certainly. I just want to comment on the Chinese market. We help customers in China, and there is a lot of interest in products. And as Jiaqi said, the options just aren't there like they are in the US. But I do think the demand is there. But I think as the market develops, the demand will show up because customers want longer term product options in China. So I think the initiative is great as a pilot, but hopefully, as the market matures, we'll see more action there. In terms of the battery storage, yeah, it's a great combination, especially if you can power charge the battery with, for example, solar energy. I think a battery in itself is not renewable energy, right? A battery simply holds whatever energy you charge it with. So we recently helped a customer in Puerto Rico, for example, install a solar plus battery system there. That was done for resilience purposes mainly, but also it was done for obviously for renewable energy emissions reduction as well. And I think when you can marry those two technologies, now batteries require a certain amount of revenue streams, a certain amount of avoided cost or additional revenue streams, either capacity market revenue streams, frequency response, which may not be available, reserve market payments, which may not be available in all markets. But clearly, they're a very powerful tool for corporates where those revenue streams are available, and especially if we can pair them. I think that's the key. If we can pair them with solar, or even purchase wind resources from the grid or certificates, then it becomes a very powerful solution, not only for the corporates, but also for the grid itself, to improve flexibility of the grid in shifting loads and absorbing, for example, solar output when load is not there. I think that's very important. So we'll continue to see battery prices fall, and hopefully we can continue to pair, renewable energy with solar, with storage.
Thank you, Alvaro. Well said. We also believe that battery storage will be a quite an important solutions for corporates to reach low carbon transitions. And I would like to take this time to remind everyone, our dear audience, if you have any questions, feel free to send in a chat. I will pick up a couple to read. So now we have a questions from Paige Xu from McKinsey. So many are talking about Scope 3 emissions accounting and reductions. We can also think of that simply as, in a simpler way, it could also mean supply chain, but broader as well. So I'd like to know if the panelists here, you have any best practices for companies to measure, manage, and mitigate your Scope 3 emissions. Maybe we can start with Tina, as HSBC has already made such a commitment, correct?
Yeah, but just like I shared before, the Scope 3 for us is not only our supply chain, for example, our vendor, it's still small scale. Our Scope 3, including our total portfolio, which is 700 times them. So I think I have already shared how we promote it. And the example I can share is that I think that how we help the customer to manage their supply chain emission is more interesting than how we manage ourselves, because our customer is ourselves. Okay, our customer is our Scope 3. So how we help our customer, for example, 2 years ago, we worked with Walmart. Walmart is one of the biggest retailers, right, and buyer in the group, and they have there are thousands of hundred suppliers all across the world. For example, in China, they have lots of suppliers, and then Vietnam, you can imagine that, right? So we already developed a supply chain finance, a sustainable supply chain finance with Walmart. If their supplier achieve a better rating in their own ESG system. When they say ESG, they say they are including emission, they including maybe labor, right? And the whole ESG thing. If they achieve a better score of it, they get a lower interest rate loan from HSBC. Because supply chain actually is one of the biggest financing market. Everyone in the world, when they do trade, they are not paid by cash. You can imagine that, right? They involve shipment, so there is LC, there's different loans of different supply chain financial product. In short, every supply chain, they have a bank behind. So we use an interest rate to help Walmart to educate or promote their supplier to do a better ESG rating, so they can get a lower cost in money, because money is cash flow is quite important for survival. For a small company, Walmart might don't need it, but their supplier, their factory will need it. So that's one kind of thing I think I can share. So I will hand over to other panels to give more example.
Yeah, I can chime in. I think Tina is spot on, and I think the first thing that I would recommend is just to understand your supply chain. Map your supply chain, understand the different components of Scope 3. For a banking customer, there's really one major component, which is the investments that Tina talked about. But for other companies, manufacturing companies, you have to look at your purchased goods and services, your capital goods. But really, the first step is study the CDP or GHG protocol, understand the different components, and try to focus on the largest suppliers. Start there, and then you can work with those suppliers or work with those customers. Recently, we worked with a customer in Europe, helping them sell their solar asset to their tenants. So there's an example of a customer decarbonizing their supply chain, their Scope 3. So once again, it's about the larger customer being able to help, as Tina said, help their supply chain participants and collaborate on efforts going forward.
Cool. Thank you, Alvaro and Tina. I think in terms of the scope 3, we also see the broader scope, including financed emissions, such as the equity investment from a major from the company itself. It's the category 15. So it's also being chatted about a lot recently, and from previous presentations, I think Tina mentioned that HSBC has decided to phase out coal investment 2 years ago. So anything else that you want to share on this front in terms of financial institutions' role on and strategies on reducing the financed emissions?
I think that the pillar I just shared will be the main strategic framework for us. And you remind me that I forget to mention one thing. It's about investment. Is that we are not only a commercial bank, we are also an investment bank. For example, Citi also do that, right? It means that we are not only lend money to people, we also help people to do investment because we are one of the biggest asset management company. So one of the things we are doing, we already been doing, is that we try to have a ESG standard in our investment. I think in US and Europe, we have already seen lots of, especially in Europe, because basically HSBC is European bank, our headquarters is in London. So you can see that our European peer asset management have already do lots of engagement stewardship to influence their holdings company. I mean, the share they hold, they influence the company by raising share action, that kind of thing. And I expect that in the coming 2 or 3 years, it's one of the US banks, I mean, the US asset management company, and also the Asia, especially China asset management company, such as Ping An or Zhongjing, they will do more to see that when for example, I'm an asset management company, I buy a stock of Tencent, I buy a stock of Google, and on the other hand, I bought the stock of the energy, BP. How we compare to? If I have funding money, which one we invest? Normally, the banker will think that I invest in the higher income, lower risk, higher income, right? That's easy example. But maybe in the future, every asset management company, they will not only consider return risk, they will put ESG integrate into it. The reason is that if you have a higher ESG performance in long term, your risk is lower, and you promote better return. You don't conflict your return. So I think that that's one of the mainstreaming investment principle in the future that incorporate the whole ESG consideration in every decision they make in the value chain of it. Not only in lending the money, stop fueling the high carbon one, or help them transit. Yeah, and talking about this, I have a second point I want to make is that you can see that recently the oil price, they have like a drama, right? They decrease after the COVID, and then they increase a lot, right? Especially in the recent 3 months, and we want a stable economic. We don't want that fluctuation, that drama. I mean, so that's one of the things a financial institution need to do. That is that it's not one cut off in a sudden. It not happen in one night. We cannot do that. Is it the coal or the traditional energy in one night? Our system is not that resilient at all. You can see there's lots of blackout already happening in the world. If you read the news, there's another country doing that. Not only in China, we have already have quite a lots of limitation. So we need to balance it. We know that climate change is important, but my personal opinion is that we cannot let it happen just in a sudden way. What we need to do is that help the high carbon to transit. There will be still high carbon there in the coming 2 or few years. You already see the oil price. It's like they are revenge for us. So COP26 is coming. That revenge is also going, but we are in the same side. We are not against the high carbon. Our job is helping them. So that's why we need renewable energy solution. We need cheap solution for it. We need affordable, especially for development country. Their system is very vulnerable. So we are not talking about if the price is still that high, they don't have any money to support it. Yeah, so that's what I want to share.
Yeah, thank you, Tina. Maybe we can go to Alan's questions next. I think Alan asked the specific questions to Alvaro in terms of the in a graph showing the GHG reduction over time. How is energy efficiency being considered in addition to renewable energy? I think maybe Jiaqi can chime in as well later. So let's start with Alvaro. Yeah.
Yeah, so when we work with customers in the workshop, we always start with energy efficiency. There is a loading order that we use, which is obviously energy efficiency, renewable energy, and then offsets to fill in any sort of holes in net zero. I mean, the challenge, of course, with energy efficiency is that compared to, example, a VPPA, is that you don't get, 40, 50, 60% reductions like you do with a VPPA. Energy efficiency is incrementally less, so that's why it's really more of a gradual change. But we always include it. Obviously, cost effectiveness is important, but we always find that it is effective. The only issue is the volume. The reduction in emissions that we get may not come as quickly as some customers need, and that's why we usually focus on the VPPAs or the PPAs for Scope 2. But energy efficiency is always considered.
Yeah, I can chime in a little bit. So from Tencent perspective, so energy efficiency is really equally important with the renewable energy. So basically, those are two key steps to achieve net zero. Basically, for example, for data center, right? So we have power utilization effectiveness, which is a metric for how efficient the data center is. Like 1.1 is a pretty good data center. It means you need 1.1 watt to cool 1 watt of IT load. So basically, if the number is close to 1, basically your system is very efficient. And if the PUE is 2, it means your data center is not very efficient. You need another kilowatt to cool 1 kilowatt of the server. So it has been, we have put a lot of effort in reducing the PUE in the past a few years. Basically, our PUE right now is below 1.3. Yes, but also we also need to understand the offset is very important, because the energy efficiency will only solve a small portion of the problem, and probably if you reduce your PUE from 1.3 to 1.1. Probably you can solve probably 20%, less than 20% of the problem, but another 80% of the problem, you still need to procure renewable energy through the trading program or PPA, VPPA. So both of them are very important, and those are two things that we have been working pretty hard.
Thanks, Jiaqi and Alvaro. Definitely, I think from my observation, energy efficiency has been a prime focus in the last 10 years in the data center sectors here in China. Every industry conference that I went to, people were always talking about the latest technology of energy efficiency. With that being said, it's definitely important, but it won't be enough to address all of the emissions, right? So that's why our project also focuses on raising awareness on the renewable energy side. So definitely for the data centers in China, I think the giants has been making more progress on the renewable energy, and we'll see that as a trend for the second tier and third tier data centers to follow as well. I know we talked a lot about renewable energy and supply chain Scope 3 reduction strategies, and even the financed emissions. And all of these have to based on solid data, right? Like carbon accounting and reporting. So I would like to ask general questions about the carbon data. maybe for Tina's perspective, what's the status or the quality of the ESG data or the carbon data from corporates that you see from the asset managed or the bank perspective? And for Jiaqi, and how's Tencent improving on its carbon accounting data? What are some of the practices that you do? And for Alvaro, you've mentioned some digital solutions to help. What are some of the latest examples that you want to share? So let's start with Tina.
Yeah, if I need to make a short comment, I think that the data nowadays in the market is not even past the average score I expect. It's below the past score. That's my thinking. The point is that, first of all, for CDP, only large company can offer to join. If you see their questionnaire, as I share, you need a dedicated person, at least half a full-time manpower person to understand it, at least in the very first beginning. So for small business, because major, especially in Asia or developing market where I'm sitting in, the major is small companies. They don't even have the manpower to do it. So we need to make it simple for them. We're working with CDP for that. For example, we encourage our supplier or all report in the CDP's volunteer disclosure. So I think every big names, every big company, they need to promote their supplier to do that. So in order to get their full insight on their scope-free emission, but still the number is still limited. In that protocol, we will see great opportunity. Let me put a more positive way is that you will see great opportunity in the future to do more about it. And for ESG, frankly speaking, we don't even have a global standard for ESG. I think a carbon is the most direct one. We have already had a standard. It's easier to measure. I think that no matter in peer or compare with different country or even different industry, it's easier. But for S&G, we don't even have a global standard. We don't even have a national standard, such as in US, right? And let alone China. So yeah, there's a long thing to do. But I agree that, and also for the topic stack of requirement is already the most development in the East, already the most developed one across across different industry and topics. So yeah, that's my feeling now.
Yeah, like the data availability and the difficulty to gather good data is quite challenging. So hence, companies, especially leading companies who has the capacity to do it, has been making a little bit of the progress. Jiaqi, would you like to share a little bit about the carbon data disclosure and accounting part effort that Tencent has been making?
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah. Thank you. So, since Pony stated the carbon neutrality initiative in January, so we have spent past like 8 months doing all this like data benchmarking and data collections and everything. Even though we haven't make it all public, but we did put a lot of effort into the data collection and very detailed statistical analysis for our carbon footprint. So basically, we have our scope 1, 2, 3 number internally for our carbon emission. We have all the electricity data for our data centers and also the buildings, office buildings. And we have most of our supply chain data like servers, hard drive disk, and also network equipment, the quantity for those. And we use some conversion factors to convert those into the metric ton for carbon dioxide, and also we have counted refrigerant that we use, the transportation, and so on and so forth. So we do have a very robust calculators internally, and we are also developing some platform internally as well. So basically, want to make this automatic, basically automatically collect all the emission data, including scope 1, 2, 3, 4-hour data centers and buildings. So we're building that platform internally as well. So our system can be first very accurate, very robust, very smart, make it very easy to use, so that we can have a very clear benchmark. As we all know, like benchmark, the data is very important so that we can show our progress moving forward. But basically, that's our the main job we have been doing in the last few months.
Thanks, Jiaqi. That's great to hear some of the efforts that you've been making. And I think we are looking forward to hear more about the supply chain data when you guys are more ready. Okay, let's go to Alvaro. Maybe you've been mentioning some digital solutions for collecting the supply chain and scope 3 data.
Yeah. So we have our solution that we help customers with. So as been said already, smaller customers don't have the resources to either develop their own systems or ongoing collections. So we help customers with that data collection. We have been doing utility bill management for quite a while. And we in the past, we did that for managing utility bills, understanding costs, doing budgets. But really over the last few years, that has turned into really sustainability focused, because as was mentioned, the activity data from the bills, times an emissions factor is where you get your emissions data. So for scope 1 and scope 2, it's your electricity bills, your natural gas bills, et cetera. And it's very important that those bills, that you have a auditable track record and that be verifiable. So at the CDP, when you get audited by a third party, that you're able to show obviously where these bills are. So we have digital solutions available that we make available to customers if they do not have their own. So, but I think the important thing is there should be a system somewhere, either your own system or a third party that helps you maintain that activity data and make that open to the auditors, so your emissions data is sound and can be verified. And we're starting to work with customers more on scope 3, because as the focus obviously turns to supply chain, most of the emissions we're finding of customers are in scope 3. Even in the past, traditionally, a lot of customers, even if they didn't think scope 3 was a lot, I think the more they look at their supply chains, they realize that as they look at it in detail, most of their emissions are there in scope 3. I think CDP recently said that scope 3 is over 11 times the operational emissions of scope 1 and 2. So really it's very important to track that. And what we do is we help customers, as I said, map out those supply chains to really understand where they're coming from. So what I always tell customers is, if you start somewhere, if you can't do everything at once, that's okay. But I think the CDP appreciates that you're starting these efforts. And one way to improve your scores at CDP is to focus on scope 3 in addition to scope 1 and 2. So the more complete accounting you can have, the better.
Definitely. Data is quite important, and it helps companies understand where they are and how they can improve, but it also helps investors to benchmark different corporates. I hope that with more of the solutions getting cheaper and more of the small and medium companies can also join the disclosure train. Finally, we don't have too many time left. So as we are closing these fruitful discussions, I would like to give a final chance to the panelists. Would you like to share some final tips or advice for corporates reaching net zero actions for now? If not, you can share a couple last words about the future plans about your company's net zero actions that we can all look forward to. let's start with Jiaqi and Alvaro, and then Tina.
Cool. Yeah, I saw Alan Deng is online. I remember before I went back to China, and I had a meaningful conversation with him, and basically we compared Chinese companies with those US companies. You really find that we really just get started. So last week I was reading a report from Google, 2016 environmental report. That's pretty impressive, and it impressed me because it states how Google starts the journey in 2010. So basically, when Google first started the first PPA. So basically, when Google started that journey, so there wasn't much available green power you can purchase from the utility. So basically, you cannot go to a utility and say, I want renewable power at that time, 10 years ago. So they work pretty hard with utilities, regulators, and also the providers to sign the first PPA contracts and then VPPA, and develop all those different approaches. And then they grow to a larger scale, get 50%, 70%, 100%. And then after that, Amazon and Microsoft, those tech giant cloud providers, they joined the group to purchase renewable power. So it really takes time. And now they're focusing on 24/7 net zero. So basically, they want to make sure all their green power can match their actual electricity consumption. And Microsoft, they just announced their 100 plan. Basically, that's the same as Google's 24/7, and they're getting a very advanced stage for decarbonize their organization. So, so reading all those histories helped me think like we really have a very long way to go. Like we just mentioned, we have just started the green power trading program in China, and we don't have much demand, and we don't have much supply, and we don't have a direct rate market that we can do virtual power purchase agreement. And China's energy markets are different. All the demand is in the East Coast, in the coast, and all the renewable supplies are, northwest. So basically, we need to use a high voltage to deliver the green power to the coast. So, and all of our data centers and a lot of our electricity demand is in the East Coast too. And there's no space for building a big wind farm or solar farm near our demand. So that gives us a lot of challenges. That's why, I know you have been pushing for all the companies to, announce like their net zero plan. But I want to point out that we have been working pretty hard, and there are a lot of difficulties. And we do want to achieve that as soon as possible. That's why we have been purchasing green power and also build all the solar roofs, large-scale solar roofs, on-site solar power, our data centers, and also we're trying to develop more, utility-scale solar farms and wind farms to offset our carbon emission. So with all those efforts, we do want to, achieve 100% renewable energy and net zero as soon as possible. We found a team internally. We have a lot of support from our top CEO, Pony. So I have been in the meetings with Pony on these topics. But really, we do hope that, soon in the future, we can make a few announcements with more detailed plans and really want to, be the leading companies, tech firms in China for carbon emission initiatives. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I can jump in. I think, yeah, I agree. There are definitely challenges, but I'm hopeful. I see a lot of interest. I mean, the number of companies reporting to CDP is close to 10,000, if not over. We see the number of companies and science-based targets also increasing. I think it's close to 2,000, 1,700 or something like that. We've seen a massive increase in PPAs. So clearly the corporate sector, there's a lot of interest. And we're also hearing from some of the smaller companies. You know, we've talked about Google's and the data centers and all that, but some of the smaller users are also either through supply chain pressures or on their own have been reaching out to companies like ours for help to decarbonize their operations. So I think there's a lot of interest there. And I think really that's the first step, right? Because if corporates don't put pressures on governments and on grid operators and on utilities to provide solutions, then it won't really happen as quickly. So I think as corporates continue to demand this, and it could be, as Tina said, to get financing or lower cost financing for whatever the reason, I think we're going to continue to see progress. So I'm really hopeful, and I look forward to the next 5 to 10 years when this will really hopefully help us address the challenges that we have.
Yeah, my term is that let me summarize what I shared before, because I think most of my topic today covers how we achieve that as a bank or financial institution. First of all, we need to know how much carbon we really financing is. That's why we have TCAF, TCFD, all these tools, this jungle are using to help we understand how much we are doing now. And the second is that after we understand it, we develop different tools to help us, help the customer to do the transition. And it involves market education. For example, in Asia, most of our customers do not know what climate change really is. So from climate change to carbon reduction and then to sustainable finance, you need education for them. And also we need education provided for our staff, right? Our RM, our relation manager, our retail sales. They need to know what kind of product they can provide to the customers. And frankly speaking, we have more than 200,000 frontline staff today. We need to do the training. We need to provide them sufficient information they can share to their customers so they know how to help them. And also the final is that we want to, I think the finance institution as larger and foundation in the economic system, we need to do more in thought leadership. We need to do more to advocate for the government, charity together, all other stakeholders together to lead this dialogue. So you see that in the coming 3 weeks, my team will publish a few reports focused on Asia, because my focus area is in Asia. How the renewable energy developing with CDP, that process with CDP, how the renewable energy readiness in the Asia market. And also we will develop 2 reports, one for Indonesia, the other for India, to see that how the affordable means that it's cheap enough for a normal citizen can offer, and how digital can help them, and how sustainable finance can help them to assess the sustainable renewable resource in India and in Indonesia, such a big developing market. So I think that lots of different banks, lots of different institutions already doing that. You can follow my LinkedIn. I will share the report, not only the HSBCs, but the worldwide, that we want to lead the dialogue as that's our responsibility to the society. I mean, that's my opinion. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for all the presenters here. As I can hear that building consensus is quite important and urgent. It's not only internally with the different departments to bring our own corporate towards net zero, but also across the society, right? With our policymakers and customers as well, and bringing the finance sector in as well. So this across the sector and across the society consensus is quite important. And we'd like to take this opportunity to thank EIN for making this panel for us to talk about climate change strategies and corporate action strategies. So maybe it's time for me to hand back to Zetian.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Ruiqi, for moderating this panel. And thanks, Tina. Thanks, Jiaqi. Thanks, Alvaro, for the great presentation. it has been a very insightful and fruitful discussion, and we are very looking forward to the future efforts from each of the companies. And we believe like if every company makes the progress, we will definitely achieve our target to achieve net zero by the middle of the century. And as we're wrapping up this session, my colleague at EIN also just shared a few information about our channels, including our website, our LinkedIn channel, and also our WeChat, our Slack channel. And please feel free to follow us on these channels, and we will have more interesting sessions, discussions in the future, and please feel free to join us in the future. So that's all from us, and thanks everyone again, and thanks for all of our speakers, especially Alvaro. It's already 10 p.m. in the East Coast, so thanks for staying late with us. And also thanks Tina, thanks Jiaqi, joining us from China. It's a Sunday and it's yesterday is a working day, so thanks for making time joining with us. Thanks again.
Thanks. See you next time.
Bye. See you next time.
Thanks.
Bye.